Yeah, you definitely don't want to be walking on the river this time of year. At least not with the way the temperature is right now. You'll fall through, and it won't be a good day for you or anyone else for that matter. This definitely feels like Resident Evil back here. You know, a mix between RE4 and The Village. Absolutely. So you guys are never going to believe this. On this trail back here, not even quite sure if I'm supposed to be back here. And I stumbled upon this old canoe. Unbelievable. See if we can get a closer look at this. Yeah, just an old canoe. Just sitting back here. It's pretty fucking wild. So I think that canoe is there for a reason, because I think in the summertime, when everything melts, I think there's enough water back here that you can jump in that canoe and you can go for a little tour. So that's pretty fucking cool. Might have to come back here. So just so you guys can take a closer look. I'm obviously not gonna walk on that, but take that canoe all the way back there. Looks like it might be a beaver dam. And this looks like a kind of like a bench where you could put your hockey skates on and you could get out on here and go for a little bit of a skate. So that's pretty fucking dope. You can see this tree is completely uprooted. Alright guys, let's head back to the games room and continue on with today's video. Alright, so we're back in the games room, and a couple of things to talk about today. Beer of the day, Brava. Poor man's Corona. So we'll crack this bad boy open, have a sip of her. So the first thing I want to talk about, as it is 2022 now, what better way to ring in the new year than to talk about the Intellivision Amiko, the console that everyone either loves to hate or everyone hates to love. So a few things I wanted to talk about, and we'll move on to the next subject. There's been quite a few Amico videos popping up, at least on my recommendation list. And one thing I want to kind of say is, take it with a grain of salt, but like, if someone out there loves this thing, even if they haven't played it, you kind of have to let them do their own thing. I just want to share an example. Several years ago, I don't want to get into specifics, but I was kind of strong-armed into going to a Justin Timberlake concert, and the girl who I was with, she was really into Justin Timberlake. I can't stand that music. Can't stand Justin Timberlake. Don't like NSYNC. Don't like any of those bands whatsoever. But could I fault her for enjoying that type of music, for being a fan of Justin Timberlake? Maybe, but was I going to say anything to her to piss her off and upset her or ruin her night? Absolutely not, right? Now, is she going to be a fan of some of the music I listen to, like Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Megadeth? Probably not, right? So just be mindful out there. If you are not really a fan of the Intellivision Amiko or the project, it is still kind of vaporware right now. Just be mindful that there are some people that could be genuinely excited for this thing. And, who are we to sort of shit in their cereal, so to speak? So, that being said, it is, as far as I'm concerned, vaporware right now. Until we see something a little bit more concrete, it's still questionable as to when this thing is coming out. I think, if I had to guess, I think this console will come out the first quarter of 2022. In what sort of state? I imagine probably an unfinished state, and then from there they're going to try to update the firmware as we move along. But my biggest issue with the Amico is not necessarily the hardware. It's actually an issue with the software or lack thereof. So, if you're going to shell out this kind of coin for this console and there's only 15 to 20 games available at launch, that's not good. You need more software for the consumer. That's not going to cut it whatsoever. So, I don't see this thing having 50 games on launch. And even if this thing has 10, 15, 20 games on launch, how long is it going to take before more games start to trickle out? So that's something I said several months ago. I think the biggest mistake with this console is not opening it up to indie developers and third-party support, and trying to be too particular with saying, you can have a game on the Amico, but the way that the game functions is proprietary in terms of how it works with the controller. And I get that on paper, but again, in terms of being able to support the system with games coming out, even if they could put games on this console that don't necessarily take advantage of the controller and just play like a regular game that you'd buy on the iOS or on the Android operating system, I think you're sort of boxing yourself in a corner when there's not enough variety to choose from. So, I know Tommy and Co. They said they don't view the big three, or even specifically the Nintendo Switch, as direct competitors, but I think the general consumer would beg to differ. I think if you're out there, if you're a mother or you're a father and you're shopping out there and you see this thing, and then you see it on the store shelf next to a Switch or a Switch Lite, which is in the same sort of price bracket, or even an Xbox One, Series S, it's not really a difficult choice, right? With regards to people online that are on YouTube, that are still nitpicking about things like lag and art direction, why they didn't go with pixel art for certain games. The average consumer that this console is targeted towards, they don't have any fucking clue what you guys are talking about. And even if the game had lag, they probably wouldn't even notice it. So just keep that in mind, right? This console's not geared towards the hardcore gamer, or even someone that watches YouTube for that matter. It's for the casual consumer that doesn't even know that our channels exist. So I'm going to leave it at that. So the rest of this video is kind of a James Cameron influenced sort of video. I hate to say that. I'm not a big fan of James Cameron, if you can believe it. I believe he is Canadian. He might be from Vancouver. I could be wrong on that. But the first thing I want to mention, I finally got around to watching The Abyss, as you can see back here. I've got the original VHS copy, the original artwork on the VHS, because there was a couple of different releases of the VHS. And then recently I picked up the special edition DVD of The Abyss, which I watched today. And I gotta say, for being an older DVD, the quality was actually pretty good, not gonna lie. So The Abyss, I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but it's almost like if Aliens and T2 had a baby underwater, it would be The Abyss. So here you have a movie by James Cameron, and he had just done Aliens back in, what was it, 85, 86? I think The Abyss came out around 89. And he recasted a lot of his characters from previous movies there. He's got Michael Biehn co-starring in The Abyss there, Mr. Kyle Reese himself. And, you've got Ed Harris and he's a fantastic actor, obviously. And then you've got Gina from Scarface co-starring in Abyss as well. So, it's interesting to watch The Abyss because you can see this is really where James Cameron started to get comfortable with using sort of like CGI effects. Back in the day, this was one of the first movies to sort of really start to use it to a heavy degree. And you can see the effects in this movie are very similar to what he ended up using in T2 as far as like the liquid animation is concerned. So there's a lot of people that don't like The Abyss. I'm not one of them. I like The Abyss. I have a soft spot for it in my heart. It was one of the first movies I watched of a James Cameron movie. Again, I'm not a fan of Terminator 2. I've done a video in the past comparing the original Terminator, which I love, compared to T2, which I think is a bloated affair. And I'm not a fan of Aliens either. I don't like how James Cameron took what Ridley Scott had done, which was very much like a sci-fi horror classic, and sort of pushing it into the mainstream with this action-oriented, I guess his version of Alien, which is Aliens. And I just wasn't really crazy on it, never was. I get it, some people view it as a classic, but to me, I just never really got into it. So, but with The Abyss, I don't mind it. It's pretty good. It's got a good story. Great cinematography as well. If you haven't checked out The Abyss, if you don't know much about it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a fairly long movie, but it's worth checking it out at least once, so you can at least have an opinion on it if it comes up in conversation. I don't want to talk too much more about it. I'll give you guys the opportunity to go out there and check it out for yourself. So, yeah, so that's it. So I guess the last thing we'll talk about here, keeping with James Cameron, I finally popped on Terminator Resistance on the Xbox One last night, and I gotta say I'm actually really impressed with it. It was done by a small time dev studio, Teon, as you can see here. I don't know if you can see that. But a couple of things I want to mention. So I love the cover art. I love the way it looks. I think they did an excellent job with that. When you pop on the game, there's a huge update. It took forever to install. Once the game kicked on, you're greeted with an opening sequence, and then you get like an incredible version of the original theme song of the Terminator in this game. It's absolutely incredible. One of the best versions of the theme song I've ever heard. And then you get into the game. What I really like about this is this. What I really like about this is this came out right around the same time as the new Terminator movie, Dark Fate. And this has really nothing to do with it. This is more tied into the original Terminator and Terminator 2. And basically, you're out there to join the Resistance, to take on Skynet, and it's kind of like not really what I was expecting. I thought it was just going to be just straightforward first-person shooter, but it's kind of like, how should I say, maybe if Cyberpunk, had a baby with Fallout 4, you'd get this game. So it's a first-person shooter, but there are some fetch quests sprinkled in. I do like the artistic design in this game. This game did come out on the PS5. Apparently it's enhanced on the PS5. Don't know if it's enhanced on the Xbox One. Limited Run did a physical version of this game as well. For the longest time, this game was hard to find on the Xbox One. I don't know if that's the case now. I walked into Walmart a couple of months ago and picked it up. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's not too difficult. When you see the T-800s walk by in this game, you can't just jump out and blast them. You can't run. Well, you can sort of run away from them, but for the most part, you have to rely on stealth in this game, and you got to sort of wait for those T-800s to walk by, because if they see you, you're fucking dead. So it can get pretty fucking tense, believe me. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this game. Apparently, the campaign is around 8 to 10 hours long, which is the sweet spot as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I'm really impressed with this game for being, I guess you would call it a budget release, even though the price isn't necessarily budget oriented. I paid $40, which is not bad, but when it first came out, gosh, what was it? Was it full retail? I think it was. But yeah, I would say it's probably the best Terminator video game ever made. That being said, I haven't played T2, the arcade game, yet for the Sega Genesis. It was recommended to me by a viewer. But yeah, no complaints at all with Terminator Resistance. I'm going to try to get through this game over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, and then I'll share my final thoughts on it. But yeah, absolutely no complaints so far. I guess if I had one complaint, some of the environments can get a little bit repetitive, I guess, but that's sort of the way it is based on where you're at in the game. It's not the type of game where you're going to be in a tropical setting and then in the desert and then in the mountains. It's Terminator, for fuck's sakes. You're in the concrete jungle. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys all had a safe New Year's. I don't know what your guys' New Year's resolutions are, but hopefully you guys can stick to it. That's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this nice VHS quality of this video here. I'm using my older camera, and I love the way it looks. I don't care if you guys can't stand it. So, anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and have a good rest of your night. Take care.
Mommy, Daddy, where's my Amico? How come it's not under the Christmas tree? Son?
I told you already. They've rebranded it. It did come out this year, and it's called the Nintendo Wii, and I picked one up for you, okay? So Merry Christmas and Happy fucking New Year!